which is what we were learning until now. Siman Taf Nun Aleph. It's divided into certain different sections, so to speak, of what's things that are asur, mostly regarding to Hagalas Kolel. The first 4 or 5 seifim are talking about Bichlal Kelim of Chametz and Pesach, and then starting from Seif Hey starts different Kelim, how they can be kashered or can't. Sivav Kelim that can be kashered or can't be kashered. The first thing he brings is Kli Cheres. Sivav, the Alter Rebbe says, called Kli Cheres, that was used in Chamin Shayatzel at this boy. And obviously we're talking about a Kli Rishon, because a Kli Sheni is discussed much further down the Siman. The Kli Rishon. A Kli Cheres, Hagala does not work. The rule for Hagala is Kabbalah Kachpoltoi, where since it absorbed through liquid, the Blias Chametz will come out through liquid. You put it into hot water, Kabbalah Kachpoltoi, all the Bli of the Chametz comes out from the liquid. From the same way it came in, came out. Kli Cheres does not. There is a machlokes rishonim. What's the reason why Kli Cheres doesn't work? I'm not sure. Seems machlokes rishonim of why Kli Cheres doesn't work, whether it's because the Hagala doesn't pull out of a Kli Cheres, or because it pulls out but not fully. The Alter Rebbe uses the words, that the gil hanivla boy, the treif or whatever it is, the chametz which is absorbed in it, does not come out from its walls le'olam forever. But every time you cook it, a little bit more comes out. The ikar gil habalua betoicha in a niflat menugam. The ikar gil, the main essence of the thing which was absorbed into it, does not come out through Hagala. And therefore, what's the solution for it? So therefore, he says right away, the Chacham said you have to do libun, full-fledged libun. What does libun mean? He says that it has to be put. Afterwards, the Alter Rebbe explains it has to be put into the oven where they make Kli Cheres. But the idea is it should be so much fire until sparks fly out of it. Then Alter Rebbe adds this with she'oz nisraf v'nichle kol ha'isra below b'toichei. At that juncture, when you burn it and sparks fly out, anything which was absorbed in it gets burnt. It doesn't come out because we say Hagala Kli Cheres doesn't come out. The goal of libun is different. It burns whatever's inside of it, and it's nichlet. It's over. How do these sparks come to be? So this is an interesting thing you would know, or some of you would know. Sholom knows about it. That if you have the more something, when you make something from cheres, from metal, from anything, because you'll see the nitzutzos coming across in a few places in Libel. Something which is very, very tight, has no air inside, so has no place for anything to get stuck inside. Something which is not so dense, it has even tiny air pockets inside, something could get stuck in there. Now, that doesn't mean that there's a hole going through the pot. There could be steam of a soup that's going to penetrate through the wall, and it will convert into something in there. When you do libun, and you see sparks, that means that anything which is in those tiny holes that you can't see, just the food that's there, minute amounts of food, became now carbon and came flying out. So, Kli Cheres is porous, means it has holes in it. That's why it absorbs easily. You do libun gamor, the sparks, that means when you burn it until the tzutzas come out of it, means pretty much sparks. You know that anything that was inside of it, until when you know that anything inside of it came out. Today, Kli Cheres, I don't know if today probably still has air pockets inside, but metal, you will never see the tzutzas coming out of it, especially stainless steel. Why? Because when the metal is made, they cook it and they make it in such a way that there's no air in it, for various reasons. But some of the reasons it doesn't get destroyed as fast. The reason why stainless steel doesn't get rust is because there's no place for the rust to get into it. It's so sealed so solidly that it doesn't absorb the moisture to be able to ruin it. One of the ways of doing it, they add some things to it, but that's what it is. So today you're not going to have nitzutzes. You just have to calculate. That's what we do today. The temperature of self-clean, whatever is 800, 850 degrees, 900 degrees. Between 850 and 900, 880. That temperature is a temperature that if there would be air bubbles in the pot, tiny places. I'm not talking about you can't see it. You put a microscope, you see it. That was food inside, then that would become carbon and fly out as a spark.
What's the thing of red hot?
Is
a red hot the equivalent of nitzitzis and causing that?
Red hot is the equivalent of peeling it, but not everything even today gets red hot. Some things could get 1,000 degrees and not get red hot. Red hot is hotter, yeah. That's something. The Evan Melubin is for Agola, not for Libun.
No, when you see it, you need to make it hot. You need to put it on top of the fire.
Yeah.
You need to see it
get hot, yeah.
Like you see a different color or spots on it.
That's only to make the temperature to boil the water.
Yeah, when you see it, you see that it gets. Does it change colors? I don't know. I don't think it changes colors.
What's the degree that it takes in Tazman? How do they make the chesed?
What?
Who made the chesed of the degrees?
These degrees, the Machon Technology LaHalacha, Rabbi Halperin from Yerushalayim, who I think passed away already. He did this cheshbon, calculated how much temperature you would need to be able to reach the level of nitzutzis and nitazim iman.
What?
It's about between 850 and 900 degrees. Self-clean, yeah. You see it red. First, it doesn't get fully red hot. You go until it's what for klicheres? Klicheres you don't use a grates on top of an oven. There's different ways how to do it today. Some people just stick it into a self-clean. Yeah, you're not going to be able to get it with a blowtorch. You're going to be wasting your time.
Why?
Practically, take you hours to do it. You do it. You turn it on. We'll get to that when we get to this later on. After Rabbi talks about chatzuvas, that's talking about those grates. Now you mentioned self-clean. Self-clean amol used to be, and even today a lot of them still are, that just makes the hottest temperature 900 degrees, and that cooks everything burns everything, cleans everything in the oven. But that destroys the oven sometimes. If you do it too often, it destroys the oven. So they came up with something new, a new kind of self-clean, a steam cycle self-clean. Steam cycle self-clean, where the water boils under pressure to a very hot temperature, and that causes all the dirt to come out of the walls of the oven and gets cleaned. That doesn't even work as a gola, according to a lot of opinions. Why? Steam is not water. A gola is water.
If it's at a temperature of a big one, that doesn't make a difference.
Well, I'm going to speak about it soon. I found some interesting sefer that discusses these things. We'll get to that about that the temperature, if they need the temperature of a gola or not.
What temperature is the steam thing?
It's not 900 degrees. Even less than 400 degrees. Even under pressure, water. How much pressure could you make in the oven, in the house oven? How sealed could you make such an oven? It's not perfectly sealed. Yeah. So I said. So the purpose of libun is now. By the way, it seems like the Mishnah Bruder writes that it's that the libun just takes it takes out all the blias. But it's not what doesn't really make so much sense because it doesn't take anything out. It actually burns everything out. So libun, the way we understand from Al Tereba, just because it burns everything. It burns everything out. Now, that's regarding klicheres. Metal kalim, kli matches. You do hagol on it, or you could do. Alter Rebbe brings libun kal. What's libun kal? That the Alter Rebbe mentions in Seif Yud. Yeah, in Seif Yud for libun kal, it says you fill it up with coals until the outside is until you don't have to wait until there is sparks, until the outside is hot, right? If it's something which needs hagala, then libun kal works for it the same as hagala. Means it will take out from it will burn. The hagala will take out the balua, and this kind of libun kal will do the same. Will have the same effect on that pot. It's not going to take out the chametz. It's going to burn whatever chametz is in there, the blia that it got. Now, just remember the difference. Why the holies, the hagala and libun, the different levels of kashering, it all boils down to understanding how much the thing absorbed to begin with and how it absorbed it. When something absorbs, when you cook a soup, the pot is absorbing not the actual mamashas of the chicken. It's absorbing the taste that came from the chicken to the water to the pot. So it's already a less of an absorption. When something is baked or grilled, it's absorbing directly from the food. That's a much stronger absorption. Depends on what kind of keli you have. There's different absorptions. Now, metal kalim, Makli cheres, you have to have a sokem, you have to make libun gomel b'fimim and b'chutz. Yeah, by kli matches, we don't hold like that. Why? Kli matches has a chumra and a kula. Chumra in yeredeya, cham miktsasei cham kuloi. Part of it touches, the whole thing becomes treif. It works for this also because heat transfers around so much easier. So therefore, when you do libun kal, it's also easier. Libun kal is until on the other side, it will be yad seledas boy. The other ones with the straw.
Right. So which one do you need? And where?
This one over here, we're talking about if you need for agala, and it says if it's a klimatches, all you need when you do a libun kal, it has to be yad seledas boy on the other side. Yad seledas boy, the way we calculate yad seledas boy, you're not burning a kash on the other side of that. The lowest level of yad seledas boy is like 104 degrees. That's just above what the normal mikveh is. The mikveh is 90, whatever. This is 104.
The mikveh is harder than 104.
Okay, yeah. In Yerushalayim, you have mikvahs which are harder than 104. Yeah. Shiloh, Bishul, and Shabbos. So what I'm saying is, if today nobody has straw lying around in his house. People all had mattresses made from straw, so you just pulled one piece from there, brought it to the kitchen, and you know what you had to do. Today, one of the easiest things that burns is a tissue. A tissue, or not a tissue, a napkin. Napkin is napkins. Some tissues are also, they burn much easier. Piece of toilet paper, you just put it on the other side. You see it becoming brown. You know that it's you did libun kal already.
We never really do the
You do until you see it burning on the other side.
That's not harder yet.
Because I'm telling you, the yad seledas boy, the temperatures today are not going to be able to get to that. What's the definition? Also, we use the definition of yad seledas boy for Shabbos, which is a much less definition. The 104 degrees is the definition for Shabbos, which is much less than what you would consider yad seledas boy. If you follow the simple pshat of Rashi, yad seledas boy will be more like 140 degrees, not the 104. 140, 145. 150 will start becoming brown now. You need to get it like 190 to start burning. Yeah, now. So I said something which is absorbed through fire. This is if you'd gimel, something which is absorbed through fire. has to be hagola, has to be libun gomer. Why? The whole swara kibela kachpolte. If you use a pan and you bake on it challah or bake on it a cake, that needs libun gomer to use it on Pesach. Why is that? Because it absorbed from chametz directly with fire and dry, and it became, and to get it out, you also have to have direct fire to it. That's in Sifid Gimel. And what does it say over here? You'll see when it comes to this, it needs a libum gamur. He says until she nitzoitzes menadzim imenu, same thing of the sparks flying, or shetashir klipase alyona, or it will start peeling. Again, today it'll be very rare to find something which will start peeling. Unless you have the old grates on top of the burners, you will see that if you blowtorch them for long enough time, or you put them into the dry clean, they'll start flaking.
That's the paint, no?
Huh?
Not the
It's
paint.
not the paint. That's the metal. There's no paint. That's those things are not. They're black through and through. It's where I forgot what metal it's made from, but that's tashi klipose. Huh?
The grates on
For the burners. Cast iron, you'll see will start peeling.
I did.
That's tashi klipose.
I tried that now. I did a cast iron, but I did till they're hot. Like the lights off. I don't know what it is. But no, but
So you saw the
I
fire
didn't
or what?
peel.
Huh?
It's hot.
It didn't peel. It's a higher quality. It doesn't peel.
So you don't have to wait till it gets red hot. I'm listening.
You do wait till it gets red hot. Yeah.
But that's not necessary because it has metal much left.
No, it's not much less. It's the same as it's 20 degrees less. Means you'll be waiting 2 seconds less. You don't even know the shear of it. It's not like you have a temperature on the other side of the pot and it'll beep when it hits 880 or 850.
It
way-
depends, like a kosher.
I don't know. They have to know each place where the torch goes. You're going to be waiting with two hands like this until you figure it out. Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, by over here by metal, it says that and or peel a layer. But klicheres doesn't say that because klicheres you'll never be able to peel a layer, even if you let it burn for 3 days at 2,000 degrees. It's not going to peel.
there against the number because you might not.
The definition you need libun gomer for klicheres. Elamai, because of Chachamim were worried that you're going to be scared of it exploding, so they said that just putting the coals inside outside is not enough because you're going to pull it out before it gets to the right temperature. So you have to just stick it into the kiln where it's originally made, and then that's considered libun gomer. Now, there's an interesting Hagoy in Taf Nun Aleph and Sif Yud Gimel. The difference between basar b'cholav and chametz. Very interesting Hagoy. Some people ask me questions about it. I would like to go through it, especially since certain parts of it are not fully clear. Let's go through it. First rule is when do you need libun gomer for something which absorbed through dry? First thing is when it absorbed davar isur in a dry directly on fire, not when it absorbed davar heter. So Alter Rebbe brings an interesting example. He says you roasted meat, you grilled meat on a pan, let's say, so it's ala oil, but the meat is kosher, davar heter. Then milk spilled on it. No, it doesn't say cheese. Milk spilled on it. It's a liquid, right? Onto that pot. So now this pot has meat that got absorbed through oil, through fire, and milk that got absorbed through liquid. The milk was cooked in there. Maybe it was absorbed. You cooked milk in that pan. Huh? No, the milk is a liquid.
It's not about the liquid, it's about the transfer through the liquid.
No, it's the liquid is still. If you cook milk, it's the same thing. Still, but it's a liquid. Since it's ikar is through milk, it will be a liquid. I think. That's how I would understand. Maybe I'm wrong. What? So now, when did it become basar b'cholav? When the milk was
Isn't that Shachar has somebody basar b'cholav, which said that cholav has got the din of tzviya, not that when it goes into a fire.
Could be. I think it talks about cheese, but there could be there is something.
No,
Like
it's cholav.
could be. I don't remember. Could be. Could be. It's a machlekes if it works. I don't remember now.
You would like to sit gimel for like you said. That the mashke is made of tamachamas.
It's moilech, yeah. Therefore.
So if the mashke itself is the milk itself is the mashke.
Yeah, but the question is okay. So maybe could be.
So then it should have the din of as far as the lower degree.
Huh?
Hot milk spilled onto the pot.
All right, if you say once you hot milk spill into the pot, fine.
That's not different than nowadays.
Okay, so hot milk spill into the pot, so it absorbed from hot milk. Right. So now you have in this pot a blia of milk, and you have a blia of meat that came in through sleep. So there we say nichsharim al yedei hagola. They become kosher through hagola. Now the Rebbe explains why. He says, he says, even though the meat which got absorbed into it through fire the taste of meat does not depart through Hagala, because we say it got absorbed through fire, so it's not going to take out the full taste of the meat from the pot. The amount which is not going to come out through Hagala is very little. He says this minority of a taste of meat that's absorbed so strongly inside this pan, which will make it not be able to come out through Hagala, is very weak. It's a very weak taste. Right? So now that one is very weak taste. Therefore, it cannot create a new metzias of basar b'cholav. Huh? So now you have a problem how to understand this, because what does it mean there's only very little that you do the Hagala? Some people understand the Alter Rebbe that you did the Hagala before putting the milk in. You didn't know what you were doing. You put meat, then you did Hagala, then you put milk. So then there's only very little, so that doesn't become basar b'cholav, because when the milk went into there, you thought you kasha the pot, you put milk into it. Now it absorbed very little meat left in the pot, got absorbed into it and became basar b'cholav. That's not strong enough to make it basar b'cholav. That's some people understand the Alter Rebbe that way. However, there is.
But how can you say that and say if this way came into a liquid and this came in? The amount of basar that was left inside after Hagala,
It's very little.
the milk doesn't reach there. So
Right, so that's why I don't understand it that way. I think it's easier to understand differently. What happens is, what made this thing basar b'cholav? It's not that basar and cholav mixed together, got cooked together in the pot. You have meat that was in the pot. That gave a tam of meat into the pot. Then milk went into there. That milk absorbed a little bit, a tam kolish from the pot. Absorbed a little bit because it's already a second level. There's no meat in the pot. There's no actual meat. It's only a tam of meat. What? No. I don't think kasha in between. I don't see why you have to say it now. You didn't kasha in between. You put milk into it, and that milk now absorbed a weak taste, a tam kolish of meat through the pot. So it's not fully not barnat, but it's a generation later. Went from the meat to the pot, and from the pot to the milk. Yes, I'm saying it's not barnat. It's not barnat, but not latera, not barnat leisura, not barnat leisura. The concept is not barnat. We don't use it as a heter. The idea is that it's traveled. So now you have a weak taste. No, so now what happens is so now What's going to make this pot basar b'chalav? If only milk went into the pot, if you're going to say like you that it goes back into the pot, then this pot has a blia of meat and has a blia of meat. It doesn't make it basar b'chalav. No, it's two blias. You have to kasher it because it has two blias, but it doesn't have the category of basar b'chalav.
That's why that's the reason of the Kolel.
Exactly, because it doesn't have the name of basar b'chalav. I'll tell you explain to you. It doesn't have the name of basar. What it absorbed is now. So now you have milk which absorbed the tam kolej of meat. That's not strong enough to make it a shame of basar b'chalav on this pot, and therefore you can't say that it was beleya and isur. All you need is the hagala takes out the ikar tam of the meat, the ikar tam of the milk, because the amount that's left over there is not enough to become a new category of basar b'chalav, so it doesn't make the pot. Yeah, but the problem is if it takes out the new tam of basar b'chalav that's in there. We're trying to say there's no issur got absorbed. There's no new name. No, it's treif. Before it's kasher, after it's kasher, there has nothing left. It should be part of it. But the tam kosh is very little, huh? Yeah, it's a difference. You go back to the original. You go back to the original one. Yeah.
No. But he's saying it should be flesh because this time,
takes out most of the meat also.
That means there's a little bit of basar left in there. I mean, if I use this pile H with milk, you'll have H.
This is a separate portion.
Very easy to make a pot flesh.
Then he continues, says, Moiser tam, it says, whatever's left from the meat, with whatever's left from the milk, which is stuck inside so deeply, it's too weak, and it's not considered basar b'chalav. But chametz, when the chametz gets grilled, when it gets baked, so the shame chametz, even though it's mutter, it's a teira bala. When you're baking chametz, and bake chametz and Pesach or something else. When you bake chametz, it's a teira bala. But the shame chametz is on it. It has a definition of chametz already. Therefore, hagala is not enough. And if there would be shame basar b'chalav, also hagala wouldn't be enough because it was nivla alidei. But being that the Alter Rebbe just explained why there is no shame basar b'chalav, because the taste is so weak before it became basar b'chalav, and that mixture, therefore hagala works. But by chametz, it's not like that. That's the nekuda of this. That's the nekuda of this hagala. Then Alter Rebbe brings other shittas that say that you could do hagala on any kelim, even if it's in b'leil de'or, and Alter Rebbe passes the ikar kisvara rishayna. Someone asked before about something someone asked before. I found there's a small, interesting sefer called Piskei Tshuva. It was printed in Tofresh Tzaddik Gimel. From a Rav called Pietrovsky. He did hashlomis on the Piskei Tshuva. On the Piskei Tshuva, things that were in Tshuvas that came out after Piskei Tshuva passed away, he put into his sefer. So when it comes to Hilchos Pesach, there's a few interesting nekudas. One thing is about using sacks of sugar that came in sacks that weren't checked on Pesach. About pots, metal pots that were coated. And then he has something interesting. It says like this: if a keli absorbed is a Siman Samach Zayin in Piskei Tshuva. Yeah, Siman Samach. It says something which absorbed isur through, and this is Negea, it's interesting, it's Negea L'mais, and you'll soon see why. Something which absorbed Isur through fire, through water, through liquid that was cooked on the fire itself. It means you have a pot, the pot is sitting on top of fire, and you cooked something in it. You cooked noodles, so absorbed chametz. Yeah, simple, classic, everybody knows the pot they use for noodles. Absorbed chametz directly on the fire. And now you want to kasher it, but to be able to kasher it, you're going to put it in a place not directly on the fire. You're going to take a pot of water, and there is an oven, or there is coals which already are not burning anymore, but it's hot enough that when you put water on it, it will bubble. Yeah, the grufel ktuma, he says, oven which is taner shehisikwe v'gorfli. Or the coals are already not burning. A strong vanisha rak hevel eish. Only there's smoke, steam, heat coming out. Yeah, so he says that is considered toilus haish, and therefore that doesn't work for kashering. If it absorbed from directly on the fire, from a pot of noodles that was sitting directly on the fire, to do hag'olah, that pot is going to have to be on water directly on the fire. It can't be a different level. Yeah, and why is it? It says the only way it's going to work is if you do for Hagala. For Libun it's different. He brings Avnei Nezer. I think it's Avnei Nezer. Yeah, there's Mechadash that when you do Libun, when a pot becomes red, even if it's not directly through fire, if it became red, hot, it becomes like fire. So then there's no toilus. That's not an issue of toilus aish. But he says, but when it comes to water, it's not. So what is it negel mais? If you have certain scenarios where, especially in big plants, they don't have something called steam cooking. That means the water is not boiled from a fire. It's boiled from steam that's flowing around it, and that steam boils the water. So according to him, that would not count as a hagala, because if you would take a pot of noodles and throw that into that thing that got boiled through steam, it wouldn't help you. About electricity, veisach nicht. I'm not going to say lakan, but I was thinking about it this morning when I saw this book. There was electricity. If something got cooked on the fire, and then you boil water in an electric pot, is that considered aish or not? I don't know. But it was just an interesting thing that I saw today when it comes to this hagala. Now, yeah, because he also says taking the pot off the fire is different, because the water boiled on the fire. That's the whole point. It's because he says Medayik, it says Yokosh Yova B'mayim. That's how he understood it. He brings it from. Where does he bring it from? Maybe this is Eigen Azach. Nire Lodun Ulehoyer. He brings it as a Nire Lodun Ulehoyer, and he explains that if it's something Klidishan and then it came off the fire, it's different. But if it's got boiled from something which is not fire, it's a different category. Now, based on what I explained to you before, there's different kinds of materials. What's in the gear for today? There's a lot of new materials that are out there in the world. Take one example: countertops. Today, you could get pretty much as 4 to 5 general families of countertops. You have pure rock. Most expensive one, pure rock. That one, you could kasher it through Agola. Yeah? Technically. Stone. If it's smooth, you kasher it through Agola. Wood is the same thing. Wood and counter, if it's smooth, you kasher it through Agola. If it's not smooth, it doesn't help, because you have to go through every crack and clean it. What happens if something which is a composite, something which is not made from actual rock? There's some of them which have 95% rock with a certain plastic to make it together, 75% rock, or 98% rock, and they put plastic into it. So there is, even in this, there's 2 categories. If it's like the cheaper ones, Hagala doesn't help, because that's tuches reinis. It's porous, so the blias goes in. It's hacheni, the plastic is like covering the pieces. So it's like you have two levels over here. So the blia goes all the way to the bottom. The hagala is not going to go all the way to the bottom. You're going to have to blowtorch it. You blowtorch it, you melt it. Huh? Because you have it when you have something on top of something else, then you have to blowtorch that area. Hagala doesn't work when you have a patch. Over here you have plastic on top of.
Used with a patch, then it does help.
If it was originally, yeah, but you don't know how much was nivla, how much was not. You don't know what the level of plastic is. If the level of plastic is takes out or not. Where's
You guys know that no BS before you put in this thing.
right? But you do know. You also know that you don't know what plastic is, what category plastic falls into. Right, and then you have the ones that are much tighter. The expensive ones, there's no holes in them. They're solid. They're more expensive. You know, if you're paying $3,000 for a big piece before cutting, you know it's the better ones. If you're paying $1,000, you know it's the cheaper ones. Those ones, they don't absorb all the way through. But Hagala doesn't help with them either. So what you do is you just bring the company to just do what's called polish. Polish, it takes off one layer from the top. Whatever it absorbed on the top part, it doesn't go all the way down. That's all that's needed. Rock you could do.
How do you do hagala on wood?
Wood. Huh?
Burn the wood, no?
No, with iron. Hagala, the other
So the fake wood, like the plastics.
plastic. That's all these things now. So now, a lot of the counters you're going to have in your apartments are either are formica, which is a sheet covered, which is a piece of plastic on top of wood, whatever it is. You don't know what went in. There might be separations between them. So to kasher it, you have to pour hot water on it. However, that kashering is not enough to make it to be able to use it without covering a Pesach. That's what we do. That's what you would do. You would have to do both.
Why can't I just cover it?
Or you can just cover it with something thick. And when you cover it, you have to be careful, something unrelated to it. If there's liquid between the two and it gets hot, it transfers all the way through. If it's not dry, liquid transferred. Yeah, you make sure it's totally dry. If it spills and it's not, and it goes under, you have a problem. If you can't put anything hot on it because that heat is going to make everything transfer. Say that. We'll do mincha now.